There is no doubt that the necessity of life forced us to prefer only those fruits one can taste. But who suffers more from the tempting and misleading influence of the dead than those who have gone wholly missing on the surface of the world? There is one necessary but hidden and strange work, a major work, which you must do in secret, for the sake of the dead. He who cannot attain his own visible field and vineyard is held fast by the dead, who demand the work of atonement from him. And until he has fulfilled this, he cannot get to his outer work, since the dead do not let him. He shall have to search his soul and act in stillness, at their behest, and complete the mystery so that the dead will not let him. Do not look forward so much, but back into yourself, so that you will not fail to hear the dead. It belongs to the way of Christ that he ascends with few of the living, but many of the dead. His work was the salvation of the despised and lost, for whose sake he was crucified between two criminals. I suffer my agony between two madmen. I enter the truth if I descend, become accustomed to being alone with the dead. It is difficult, but this is precisely how you will discover the worth of your living companions. What the ancients did for their dead. You seem to believe that you can absolve yourself from the care of the dead, and from the work that they so greatly demand, since what is dead is past. You excuse yourself with your disbelief in the immortality of the soul. Do you think that the dead do not exist because you have devised the impossibility of immortality? You believe in your idols of words. The dead produce effects. That is sufficient. In the inner world there is no explaining away, as little as you can explain away, the sea in the outer world. You must finally understand your purpose in explaining away, namely, to seek protection. I accepted the chaos, and in the following night my soul approached me. My soul spoke to me in a whisper, urgently and alarmingly. Words, words. Do not make too many words. Be silent and listen. Have you recognized your madness, and do you admit it? Have you noticed that all your foundations are completely marred in madness? Do you not want to recognize your madness and welcome it in a friendly manner? You wanted to accept everything, so accept madness too. Let the light of your madness shine, and it will suddenly dawn on you. Madness is not to be despised, and not to be feared, but instead you should give it life. Your words sound hard, and the task you set me is difficult. Soul, if you want to find paths, you should also not spurn madness, since it makes up such a great part of your nature. I didn't know that this is so. Soul, be glad that you can recognize it, for you will thus avoid becoming its victim. Madness is a special form of the spirit and clings to all teachings and philosophies, but even more to daily life, since life itself is full of craziness, and at bottom utterly illogical. Man strives toward reason only so that he can make rules for himself. Life itself has no rules. That is its mystery and its unknown law. What you call knowledge is an attempt to impose something comprehensible on life. That all sounds very desolate, but nevertheless it prompts me to disagree. Soul, you have nothing to disagree with. You are in the madhouse. There stands the fat little professor. Had he spoken this way? And had I taken him for my soul? Professor, yes, my dear, you are confused. Your speech is completely incoherent. I too believe that I've completely lost myself. Am I really crazy? It's all terribly confusing. Professor, have patience. Everything will work out. Anyway, sleep well. Thank you, but I'm afraid. Everything inside me is in utter disarray. Matters are becoming serious, and chaos is approaching. Is this the ultimate bottom? Is chaos also a foundation? If only there weren't these terrible waves. Everything breaks asunder like black billows. Yes, I see and understand. It is the ocean, the almighty nocturnal tide. A ship moves there, a large steamer. I'm just about to enter the smoking parlour. Many people, beautiful clothes. They all look at me astonished. Someone comes up to me and says, "What's the matter? You look just like a ghost. What happened?" Nothing. That is, I believe that I have gone crazy. The floor sways, everything moves. Someone, "The sea is somewhat rough this evening, that's all. Have a hot toddy. You're seasick." You're right, I am seasick, but in a special way. I'm really in a madhouse. Someone, "Well now, you're joking again. Life is returning." Do you call that wit? Just now the professor pronounced me truly and utterly mad. The fat little professor is actually sitting at a green-covered table playing cards. He turns toward me when he hears me speak and laughs. "Well, where did you get to? Come here. Would you like a drink too? You're quite a character, I must say. You've put all the ladies in quite a flurry this evening." I. "Professor, for me this is no longer a joke. Just now I was your patient." The parlour erupts in unbridled laughter. "Professor, I hope that I haven't upset you too much." I. "Well, to be committed is no small matter." The person to whom I had been speaking before suddenly comes up to me and looks me in the face. He is a man with a black beard, a tousled head of hair, and dark, shining eyes. He speaks to me vehemently. Something worse happened to me. It's 5 years now that I've been here. I realize that it is my neighbour, who has apparently awakened from his apathy and is now sitting on my bed. He goes on speaking fiercely and urgently. "But I am Nietzsche, only rebaptized. I am also Christ, the Saviour, and appointed to save the world. But they won't let me." I. "Who won't let you?" The fool. "The devil. We are in hell. But of course you haven't noticed it yet. I didn't realize until the 2nd year of my time here that the director is the devil." I. "You mean the professor? That sounds incredible." The fool. "You're an ignoramus. I was supposed to marry the Mother of God long ago. But the professor, that devil, has her in his power. Every evening when the sun goes down, he gets her with child. In the morning before sunrise, she gives birth to it. Then all the devils come together and kill the child in a gruesome manner. I distinctly hear his cries." I. "But what you have told me is pure mythology." The fool. "You're crazy and understand nothing of it. You belong in the madhouse. My God, why does my family always shut me in with crazy people? I'm supposed to save the world. I'm the Redeemer." He lies down again and sinks back into his lassitude. I clutch the sides of my bed to protect myself against the terrible waves. I stare at the wall so that I can at least latch onto something with my eyes. A horizontal line runs along the wall, which is painted a darker colour beneath. A radiator stands in front of it. It is a railing, and I can see the sea beyond it. The line is the horizon. And there the sun now rises in red glory, solitary and magnificent. In it is a cross from which a serpent hangs. Or is it a bull, slit open, as at the slaughterhouse? Or is it an ass? I suppose it is really a ram with a crown of thorns. Or is it the crucified one, myself? The sun of martyrdom has arisen and is pouring bloody rays over the sea. This spectacle lasts a long time. The sun rises higher. Its rays grow brighter and hotter, and the sun burns down white on a blue sea. The swell has subsided. A charitable and quiet summer dawn lies on the shimmering sea. The salty smell of water rises up. A faint white surf breaks on the sand with a dull thunder, and returns incessantly, 12 times, the strokes of the world clock. The 12th hour is complete, and now silence enters. No noise, no breeze, everything is rigid and deathly still. I wait, secretly anxious. I see a tree arise from the sea. Its crown reaches to heaven, and its roots reach down into hell. I am completely alone and disheartened and gaze from afar. It is as if all life had flown from me and completely passed into the incomprehensible and fearful. I am utterly weak and incapable. "Salvation," I whisper. A strange voice speaks. "There is no salvation here. You must remain calm, or you will disturb the others. It is night, and the other people want to sleep." I see it's the attendant. The room is dimly lit by a weak lamp, and sadness weighs on the room. I couldn't find the way. He says, "You don't need to find ways now." He speaks the truth. The way, or whatever it might be, on which people go, is our way, the right way. There are no paved ways into the future. We say that it is this way, and it is. We build roads by going on. Our life is the truth that we seek. Only my life is the truth above all. We create the truth by living it. This is the night in which all the dams broke, where what was previously solid moved, where the stones turned into serpents, and everything living froze. Is this a web of words? If it is a hellish web for those caught in it. There are hellish webs of words, only words, but what are words? Be tentative with words, value them well. Take safe words, words without catches. Do not spin them with one another, so that no webs arise, for you are the first who is ensnared in them. For words have meanings. With words you pull up the underworld. Word, the paltriest and the mightiest. In words the emptiness and the fullness flow together. Hence the word is an image of God. The word is the greatest and the smallest that man created, just as what is created through man is the greatest and the smallest. So if I fall prey to the web of words, I fall prey to the greatest and the smallest. I am at the mercy of the sea, of the inchoate waves that are forever changing place. Their essence is movement, and movement is their order. He who strives against waves is exposed to the arbitrary. The work of men is steady, but it swims upon chaos. The striving of men seems like lunacy to him who comes from the sea, but men consider him mad. He who comes from the sea is sick, he can hardly bear the gaze of men. For to him they all seem to be drunk and foolish from sleep-inducing poisons. They want to come to your rescue, and as for accepting help, for sure you would like less of that, rather than swindling your way into their company and being completely like one who has never seen the chaos but only talks about it. But for him who has seen the chaos, there is no more hiding, because he knows that the bottom sways and knows what this swaying means. He has seen the order and the disorder of the endless. He knows the unlawful laws. He knows the sea and can never forget it. The chaos is terrible, days full of lead, nights full of horror. But just as Christ knew that he was the way, the truth, and the life, in that the new torment and the renewed salvation came into the world through him, I know that chaos must come over men, and that the hands of those who unknowingly and unsuspectingly break through the thin walls that separate us from the sea are busy. For this is our way, our truth, and our life. Just as the disciples of Christ recognized that God had become flesh and lived among them as a man, we now recognize that the anointed of this time is a God who does not appear in the flesh. He is no man, and yet is a son of man, but in spirit and not in flesh. Hence he can be born only through the spirit of men as the conceiving womb of the God. What is done to this God, you do to the lowest in yourself, under the law of love, according to which nothing is cast out. For how else should your lowest be saved from depravity? Who should accept the lowest in you, if you do not? But he who does it not from love, but from pride, selfishness, and greed, is damned. None of the damnation is cast out either. If you accept the lowest in you, suffering is unavoidable, since you do the base thing and build up what lay in ruin. There are many graves and corpses in us, an evil stench of decomposition. Just as Christ through the torment of sanctification subjugated the flesh, so the God of this time, through the torment of sanctification, will subjugate the spirit. Just as Christ tormented the flesh through the spirit, the God of this time will torment the spirit through the flesh. For our spirit has become an impertinent whore, a slave to words created by men, and no longer the divine word itself. The lowest in you is the source of mercy. We take this sickness upon ourselves, the inability to find peace, the baseness and the contemptibility, so that the God can be healed and radiantly ascend, purged of the decomposition of death and the mud of the underworld. The despicable prisoner will ascend to his salvation, shining and wholly healed. Is there a suffering that would be too great to want to undergo for our God? You only see the one and do not notice the other. But when there is one, so there is also another, and that is the lowest in you. But the lowest in you is also the eye of the evil that stares at you, and looks at you coldly, and sucks your light down into the dark abyss. Bless the hand that keeps you up there, the smallest humanity, the lowest living thing. Quite a few would prefer death. Since Christ imposed bloody sacrifice on humanity, the renewed God will also not spare bloodshed. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine-fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and no one is with me. I have trodden myself down in my anger, and trampled upon myself in my fury. Hence my blood has spattered my clothes, and I have stained my robe. For I have afforded myself a day of vengeance, and the year to redeem myself has come. And I looked around, and there was none to help. And I wondered that there was no one who stood by me. Therefore my own arm must save me, and my fury upheld me. And I trod myself down in my rage, and made myself drunk in my fury, and spilt my blood on the earth. For I took my misdeed upon myself, so that the God would be healed. Just as Christ said that he did not come to make peace but brought the sword, so he in whom Christ becomes complete will not give himself peace but a sword. He will rebel against himself, and one will be turned against the other in him. He will also hate that which he loves in himself. He will be castigated in himself, mocked, and given over to the torment of crucifixion, and no one will aid him or soothe his torment. Just as Christ was crucified between the two thieves, our lowest lies on either side of our way. And just as one thief went to hell, and the other rose up to heaven, the lowest in us will be sundered in two halves on the day of our judgment. The one is destined for damnation and death, and the other will rise up. But it will take a long time until you see what is destined for death, and what is destined for life, since the lowest in you is still unseparated and one, and in a deep sleep. If I accept the lowest in me, I lower a seed into the ground of hell. The seed is invisibly small, but the tree of my life grows from it, and conjoins the below with the above. At both ends there is fire and blazing embers. The above is fiery, and the below is fiery. Between the unbearable fires grows your life. You hang between these two poles. In an immeasurably frightening movement, the stretched hanging welters up and down. We thus fear our lowest, since that which one does not possess is forever united with the chaos, and takes part in its mysterious ebb and flow. Insofar as I accept the lowest in me, precisely that red glowing sun of the depths, and thus fall victim to the confusion of chaos, the upper shining sun also rises. Therefore he who strives for the highest finds the deepest. To deliver the men of his time from the stretched hanging, Christ effectively took this torment upon himself and taught them, "Be crafty like serpents, and guileless like doves." For craftiness counsels against chaos, and guilelessness veils its terrible aspect. Thus men could take the safe middle path, hedged both upward and downward. But the dead of the above and the below mounted, and their demands grew ever louder. And both the noble and the wicked rose up again, and, unaware, broke the law of the mediator. They flung open doors both above and below. They drew many after them to higher and lower madness, thereby sowing confusion and preparing the way of what is to come. But he who goes into the one and not also at the same time into the other, by accepting what comes toward him, will simply teach and live the one and turn it into a reality, for he will be its victim. When you go into the one and hence consider the other approaching you as your enemy, you will fight against the other. You will do so because you fail to recognize that the other is also in you. On the contrary, you think that the other comes somehow from without, and you think that you also catch sight of it in the views and actions of your fellow men, which clash with yours. You thus fight the other and are completely blinded. But he who accepts what approaches him because it is also in him quarrels and wrangles no more, but looks into himself and keeps silent. He sees the tree of life, whose roots reach into hell, and whose top touches heaven. He also no longer knows differences. Who is right? What is holy? What is genuine? What is good? What is correct? He knows only one difference, the difference between below and above. For he sees that the tree of life grows from below to above, and that it has its crown at the top, clearly differentiated from the roots. To him this is unquestionable. Hence he knows the way to salvation. To unlearn all distinctions save that concerning direction is part of your salvation. Hence you free yourself from the old curse of the knowledge of good and evil. Because you separated good from evil according to your best appraisal, and aspired only to the good and denied the evil that you committed nevertheless, and failed to accept, your roots no longer suckled the dark nourishment of the depths, and your tree became sick and withered. Therefore the ancients said that after Adam had eaten the apple, the tree of paradise withered. Your life needs the dark. But if you know that it is evil, you can no longer accept it, and you suffer anguish and you do not know why. Nor can you accept it as evil, else your good will reject you. Nor can you deny it, since you know good and evil. Because of this, the knowledge of good and evil was an insurmountable curse. But if you return to primal chaos, and if you feel and recognize that which hangs stretched between the two unbearable poles of fire, you will notice that you can no longer separate good and evil conclusively, neither through feeling nor through knowledge, but that you can discern the direction of growth only from below to above. You thus forget the distinction between good and evil, and you no longer know it as long as your tree grows from below to above. But as soon as growth stops, what was united in growth falls apart, and once more you recognize good and evil. You can never deny your knowledge of good and evil to yourself, so that you could portray your good in order to live evil. For as soon as you separate good and evil, you recognize them. They are united only in growth. But you grow if you stand still in the greatest doubt, and therefore steadfastness in great doubt is a veritable flower of life. He who cannot bear doubt does not bear himself. Such a one is doubtful. He does not grow, and hence he does not live. Doubt is the sign of the strongest and the weakest. The strong have doubt, but doubt has the weak. Therefore the weakest is close to the strongest, and if he can say to his doubt, "I have you," then he is the strongest. But no one can say yes to his doubt, unless he endures wide-open chaos. Because there are so many among us who can talk about anything, pay heed to what they live. What someone says can be very much, or very little. Thus examine his life. My speech is neither light nor dark, since it is the speech of someone who is growing.